Welcome to the Clubhouse. My name is Alice and I'm so glad you could join us. Today we're getting into something that has captured my imagination since I was a small boy in Kentucky. Nope. That's supposed to say since I was a little girl from Wisconsin. Somebody's been having fun with my scripts again. Anyway, I used to love to go to the museum with my family and I would ditch them as soon as we got inside. One of my favorite things to see was the amazing kinetic pieces from Alexander Calder. You remember him. He's the one who did all the great wire circus performers and single line drawings of animals. Well, he also made the most beautiful mobiles, and I found that if I stood directly below one and huffed and puffed and blew really hard, for an 8-year-old, I could make them move without even touching them. I really thought I was putting one over on those mean old museum docents. Well, a whole bunch of years later and halfway across the country, I am still obsessed with mobiles. They're like wind chimes, but without all the racket. They are also super fun to make, which I guess is why you're here. So let's get into it. Ooh, isn't that pretty? This has been a super popular workshop in our Summer Avenue Clubhouse, so I've ended up making a ton of mobiles over the years. I love to use thin sheets of copper and brass or tin that come from the craft supplier, but since Tuesdays are all about using materials you have on hand, I thought I'd show you how to use some tin cans from your recycling bin. Also, we can use aluminum soda or beer cans, but with any of these, you should really wear some gloves. Pokey pokey, it's no jokey, y'all. Haha. Alrighty then, here's what we're gonna need to gather up. You'll want some metal, tin cans and lids, soda or beer cans, Christmas cookie tins, leftover roof flashing, thin gauge metal sheets. You'll want some wire. Jewelry wire comes in lots of colors. Wire from the hardware store, floral wire, or even metal hangers will work in a pinch. You'll need cutting tools, tin snips, or heavy-duty craft scissors, pliers. I've got a pair of round nose and a pair of flat nose jewelry pliers. You'll want a hammer and some wood, nail or a metal hole punch, marker, and of course gloves and eye protection. So our first step, we want to prep those cans for use. We want to make flat pieces that are easy to draw on and cut shapes out of. So using appropriate cutting tools, we're going to carefully cut apart those cans. The easiest low fuss pieces to use are the lids that you remove with a can opener. So start saving those. Some tin cans, you can also use your opener to remove the bottom. Then you want to just cut along the side to open up your can into a flat piece with your heavy-duty craft scissors. So let me show you how that works. I got my gloves on. So here's a can that has that kind of bottom. And I'm using old-fashioned can opener. These are not the safety can openers, so this is preferable. So we're going to open up that bottom. All right, so now I have this piece that I'm going to save for use later. That's the bottom of the lid. And now this guy, we're going to just cut right along the side there. With our heavy-duty tin snips. As I said, choose the appropriate cutting tool for your can. And it's really just getting through that first bit of the lid that is the toughest. And then again at the top, that's a little tougher. And then you can pull it open. You've got quite a bit of surface area in there. All right, so a lot of cans have rounded bottoms and you can't use your can opener to take that part off. So they're a little bit harder to open, but not impossible with tin snips and some patience. So first you're gonna cut along the side and then you're gonna carefully cut around the bottom of that can. It helps as you're working to pull that can open to get your tin snips in there, but you'll want to be real careful as you work because as you can see, it makes a jagged, pretty nasty can edge. So you'll want to really watch your fingers as you're cutting that open. Soda and beer cans are the easiest to cut apart. Almost any craft scissors will cut through them, but don't ruin your good ones. The metal is really thin, so it's easy to cut. I'm not sure how durable these would be for outside hanging, but I sure do love the bottoms. They look like hubcaps from old cars. It's pretty fun, little piece to use. So next, I like to take those pieces and trim again. We're going to cut away any unusable parts like that raised rim that was so hard to cut through. So we're going to trim here. And then we'll flatten those pieces. You can use your hands, or if they're a heavier gauge, you might want to use a hammer. So here's some that I have already cut down to size. Most of my cans had these ridges in them, so I hammered some of them flat. I discovered they're fun to use both ways, ridged and flat. So for a flat piece, what you're going to want to do is hammer both sides of the sheet twice. So like this. And then banging kind of close together all the way across. Once you get all the way done, you're going to flip that sucker over and you're going to bang on it on the other side and flip twice, and then you'll get a piece that's nice and flat like this one. So you can still see the outline of the ridges, but it's actually, if we look from the side, it's a really nice flat sheet. All right, so now we're ready to draw some shapes and cut them out. I'm going to take my gloves off for this. And grab a marker and just draw some fun shapes. So this is my flat piece. I'm going to draw a circle on that one. Here we have one that still has its ridges. Let's see, this is a nice piece. And we're going to draw a shape on that. And this is my Christmas cookie tin. It's nice and flat and super shiny, which I'm very into. All right. So I'm going to start by cutting a rough outline around my shapes. If I've made more than one shape in a single piece of metal, I like to cut them apart first. It helps cut down on the sharp bits that might slice or stab me. So once my shape is free from the metal, I'll cut around each 2 or 3 times. Each time it gets a cleaner, more precise edge. So my first pass, I actually aim for just outside the drawn line. Just get rid of that excess. Really helps to cut it. All right. So you can see my line there, and I'm not really close to it. But cutting down on that outer edge a little bit is really going to help me make this next pass. So I'm going to come in a little bit closer, just all the way around. So you can see there I'm making a really fantastic sharp pokey that just flew across the table, which is why we like to wear glasses for this one. All right, so now I have a pretty great little egg shape there. Pretty great. So again, that's a flat piece. Even though you can see those ridges still, it's pretty flat. All right, so if you want to cut, I tend to gravitate towards round shapes, like circles, beans, or arches, but it's your choice. One thing to be aware of is things with more acute angles can be tougher to cut. It helps to cut into that angle from each direction. So for instance, this guy, let me angle that so you can see it. This guy, I would cut in this direction, and then I would come and cut in this direction as well. So I'm going to come around one side of that arch, and then I'll come from the other direction around that arch. And that's really going to help me get in there. So again, first, kind of getting rid of some of that excess to make it a little easier. And then again, you can cut from one direction. Let's get you up in that camera. We're going to cut from this direction, kind of to that center. And once you can't go any further, come at it from the other direction. It's still pretty tough to get into those real acute angles, as you can see. But that little trick will help you with those sharp angles. All right, so now there are tons of ways, once you've got your shapes all cut out, there are tons of ways to add some dimension and texture to your metal pieces. The tin cans with the ridges, if you've left them ridged, are really fun to bend and shape. So just kind of following the line of those curves, you can create a really fun dimensional shape. Got some other kind of examples here. Here's one that I curved in 2 directions. It looks a little bit like a ridged potato chip. You can use your fingers to curl those flat pieces as well. I'm also really into using pliers to bend or curl along the edges. So here's a fun one to do with your tin can lid. Just you can grab and then turn a little bit, and it'll give you this cool little crimp. You want to see that up close? Do this cool little crimp. So it's also kind of doming my shape out there, which is pretty fun. And it reminds me of pie. Pie. So you can use those pliers to fold, to bend and fold all sorts of shapes. Go ahead and experiment. Here's one that I made that kind of just looks more like a crinkled piece of metal. So bending it can really change the way a flat shape will reflect the light and catch the breeze. So that's something that's super fun to experiment with. You can make hard bends if you have a flat nose pliers like I do. The round nose pliers will make softer bends. Also fun. So here's another thing I did with a lid that I really thought was cool. So I sliced into it, and then I just bent those spokes to give me kind of a windmill shape. So if we look at it from the side, I think that's really going to catch the light in a fun way, and also probably spin pretty great like a propeller. All right, so the next step, we're going to punch some holes in all of those shapes. You can use a hammer or a nail. That works great. I also have, this is a jewelry, a metal punch. So if you have one of these, that will actually punch a hole in your shape as well. So to do that with a hammer and a nail, you're going to want a board underneath you to absorb some of that shock. And then you just decide where you'd like that hole, which way we're going to hang that shape. This one's a circle, so it kind of doesn't matter. And then we're going to punch really close to the edge. So I'm just going to hold my nail in place, grab that hammer. So you can see I've got a hole really close to the edge there. So no worries if you mess up, you can just trim that shape and punch another hole. So once you have all your pieces punched, the next thing we're going to do is connect these guys to some wire. This step honestly can be a little tricky, but with some practice, it's actually super easy. You'll want to cut 5 pieces of your wire to about 10-ish inches. They don't need to be precise or all exactly the same. We're going to create a loop in the center of our wire and then another loop on either end. So let me show you a finished one. So we have a loop in the center of our wire right here, and then we have another loop on either end. Let's see if we can get that in a good spot. So there's 2 loops on the end, and the loops are going to hold your shapes here. All right, so I'm going to show you how to do this with a round nose pliers, and then I'll show you how to do it using a pencil to make those loops in case you don't have those pliers. So we're going to grab that wire. Again, it's about 10 inches. And I'm going to make a loop right in the center. So I've placed it in my pliers, and it's all the way down here at the base where the pliers get, it's going to make a fatter loop. And I'm just going to push one side up and then the other side up. So now it's tight around those round nose pliers. So when I slide them out, I have a nice little loop. Now we're going to make a loop on either end, and I'm going to do the same. I'm grabbing the very end of the wire around the fattest part of that barrel and just wrapping it around one side like so, and I have a nice little loop. We're going to do that on the other side. I'm grabbing that wire right at the base, and then I'm going to twist it around like so, and I've got another nice little loop. Did y'all catch that? Let's do another one, this time using a pencil. It's going to make wider loops, so you might want to cut your wire a little bit longer if this is the way you're going to do it. But we're going to just bend right over the round bit of the pencil, like so. And now I have a loop in the middle, so you can see it is quite a bit bigger. It's facing the wrong direction, so I'm just going to smooth. We want that loop on the top of our wire. So if you didn't catch that, the wire is soft, I bent it in the other direction. Now I'm going to grab the end of the wire and wrap it around the pencil. And I have a little loop. It's not as graceful as my round nose pliers, but you know what? It's going to work just great. So I'm pinching around the end of the pencil again, and I've got another nice little loop. All right. So for each mobile you make, you're going to want to make 5 wires with the 3 loops to make your skeleton, and you'll need 6 shapes that you've cut out. I like to lay the wire skeleton and all my pieces on the table, and then I start from the bottom and connect as I work my way to the top of the mobile. Let me just get this out of the way so that I can show you that. So we're going to lay out our 6 wires to create our skeleton. Oh, those are connected. And I'm going to mix it up a little bit. I'm using some of each. All right, so I like to start with this simple pattern. I'm going to show that to you in a drawing. So here we have, this is our rib of wire, and the first one is going to get 2 shapes, one on either of those loops. And your next wire that connects, one side is going to get a rib and the other side is going to get a shape. Your next wire will do the same. One side gets a rib, the other side gets a shape, etc. until you get to the top. You always want to start at the bottom of your mobile. The beauty of this pattern and the lightweight metal is we don't have to worry a whole lot about balance as we work. The magic of it is it kind of does that for you. So I'm going to go ahead and start connecting. Oh, this one's already done. We're going to use this guy. So I'm going to connect 2 pieces, one to either side. Let's go ahead and grab something with a hole in it. Oh, lordy, I guess I didn't punch that one. There we go. And I'm just going to slide that onto my loop, And then I'm going to use my pliers to close it up. So there's my bottom one. And that one, the bottom will always have two shapes. Now the next one, I'm going to put one shape on one side, and then the wire is going to connect to the other side. And I'm going to close both of those up, both of those loops up. Lay that back down. You can see how I'm working in my pattern. So I'm going to grab the next one, and again I'm going to open a loop up and put a shape on there. I'm going to close that little loop, and on the other side of that wire I'm going to connect to my skeleton. So opening it up. All right, let's see if we can find one more here. Oh, and here's a weird, funny little wire. Let's use this one. So we're going to open that side up and show you up close since we haven't yet. So I've opened up that little ring so that I can slide my shape on there. And we're just going to slide through that little nail punched hole. And then I'm going to close that gap up so that my shape does not just come right off. And then the other side I'm going to open up, and I'm going to slip that last wire of the skeleton onto it. Well, y'all, that doesn't look too bad. Now, as we hold it up, we're going to step back a little bit from our work and see what we think. How do we like that shape? How is it hanging? You may want to tweak it a little bit at this point. The easiest change is to take your very bottom rib and exchange it with the shape that is on your very, very top rib. So let me show you another drawing to explain that. So this is the pattern we're using, where we started at the bottom with two shapes and we came all the way up to the top. Here is what you can do if you don't love the balance of what you've created. You can take one of the shapes, you can take your piece from the bottom and exchange it with the shape that is here at the top. So now my very bottom wire has migrated to the top, and this shape has moved here. So now the top wire has two wires attached to it. Do you see the difference? And that, if you're not happy with your balance and the way that it's hanging, that's a really easy way to change that. So we just exchange those two pieces. And now I have a mobile that's a little more wide rather than incredibly long. Oh yes, that's much nicer. Really dig in the way that hangs. Not sure how much of it you can see, but I love it. All right, so your last step is just to make sure that all of those loops are tightly closed. Yes, sirree, Bob, that's the most fun I've had with cans in ages, if that isn't just a grand old time. Well, thank you for watching. This is Alice signing off from our Summer Avenue Clubhouse. See you soon.